So I'm going to be talking about a certain thought that a lot of us might be having, and usually there's some sort of feeling of shame or guilt or regret that likely comes along with this, and that is simply thinking that you always, you know, think you need to be doing something, right? And if you don't end up doing that particular thing, whether this is feeling like you need to be in a relationship, or feeling like you need to get a lot of work done, or feeling like you need to accomplish this certain thing, and wanting to be productive and accomplish great things is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. If anything, I think all of us should strive to achieve something that is important to us. However, we do need to realize that this can't be the main source of our happiness, right? And if things maybe don't go according to plan, or we don't accomplish as much as we'd like, well, then we need to make sure that we aren't beating ourselves up for this, right? And I find this is what happens a lot, especially with me. You know, Sometimes we go through a lot of negative self-talk when we don't accomplish what we want to. And one way we need to think about this is, well, if you had a friend or maybe your child who you know didn't end up getting as much done as they would have liked to, or didn't end up accomplishing that one thing they wanted to, would you beat them up for that? Would you try to put them down for not accomplishing it? And no, of course you wouldn't, right? You'd be there to support them and to try and help them out, right? But for some reason, we don't really have this same approach to ourselves, and I'll get into that in just a sec here, right? So this is one way we can think about it, is understand how you are treating yourself, and if you would treat others that same way, right? Because you are a person too, right? Like, you matter too, right? And you may say, oh no, of course I wouldn't put down my child or my friend for not doing that, but we also need to make sure that we're also not doing that to ourselves. And this kind of thought pattern is very likely linked to, if not all the time, some form of conditional love in your childhood, where you were basically praised, and you were only shown the proper attention and love that you needed only when you were accomplishing certain things, right? And when you weren't accomplishing those things, or when you didn't do something or whatever, then you were kind of shamed for it, right? And the more and more that pattern is is repeated throughout your life, the more and more wired you become that way, right? And this leads into adulthood, right? So that's another thing, is realizing that this need to always do something it's not something that we are naturally born with, right? It's something that we used as an adaptive strategy when we were younger, because if we weren't doing that certain thing, right, then that means our parents or caregivers or whoever took care of you could potentially get mad at you, and potentially abandon you, and potentially you could have been left to die. And very likely that wouldn't happen, but again, that's what your brain is telling you, right? Is we need to do this in order to get the to get our needs met. And if not, then, you know, they're probably gonna be mad at us, and, you know, we're not sure what's gonna happen, right? So we can't really risk doing that, and we need to make sure we're always doing something so that we constantly, you know, have their attention and we have the support from our caregiver, right? So hopefully these pointers can kind of help you understand a little bit more about yourself and why you might have this tendency, right? And just understand that this is very likely a survival mechanism that was developed in your childhood, and it, you know, no longer serves a purpose anymore, right? And I mean, this doesn't mean we should just never be doing anything and be completely useless, but, you know, it does mean that we can start to recognize that, hey, even if I, you know, don't do something, right? Even though my body or my mind might be telling me, hey, you need to do this, we can at least understand that this is an old mechanism that is no longer relevant in our present day. So, anyways, I hope you guys found this useful, and I'll see you guys in the next video.